Hello and welcome to a very special Cardiff Central podcast because we are going to the polls, much like the country. Uh, we will be later on discussing our nominations and drawing up a shortlist for the inaugural Cardiff Central Awards. But first of all, just some introductions. I'm Harley as ever. I am joined by Dan and Carwyn, who's trying not to laugh out loud during this intro piece. How are we doing, gentlemen?
I'm just impressed with the preparation for the intro this
Yeah,
week.
it's good. It's good.
Fair play,
That was ad
Harley.
hoc.
You should have asked that by just been like, nah, well, yeah, me and my team have been working on it all
It'd have
week.
been better if you got somebody with a massive speaker to play "Things Can Only Get Better" in the background as you announce them.
It was better than
Oh,
the one
surely,
we did down the street anyway.
surely the song for a Cardiff podcast would be Pride or something. Oh, Proud Mary. Right, anyway, so we will get onto our awards a bit later on in the pod. So first of all, let's just quickly round up some of the news. Some small, some not so small. So starting off, Teddy. It's been confirmed Teddy Williams is out till start of next season, having undergone shoulder surgery. And to join with that, our new signing, the prodigal son is returning into the rehab room as Callum Sheedley unfortunately did his PCL, I believe. Dan, it was PCL. You know
That's
you
what
tend to-
Alex Bywater in the Daily Hill reported
Yeah.
PCL after it looked initially like he'd done his Achilles or something because it was non-contact and looked seriously bad. But
Yeah,
PCL is just is less bad, but it's not 12
Yeah.
months out.
yeah. It's more likely 4 to 6 months as opposed to 12. From what I've seen, Teddy should be fine for the start of next season.
Kind of just on Teddy, gutted because he had a big opportunity this summer, and
yeah, especially with Beard's injury.
yeah, you'd have
It
thought
started
you'd
against the
be
South African side.
yeah, you'd have thought you'd been third cab off the rank in the second row. Well, depending what you think of Shunzo as a second row six, but without giving Harley a heart attack at this point. But I think
He annoyingly breaks my rules of that because he's 6 going into second row.
but no, I get it for him because it would have been a great opportunity for him, especially when he's had such limited time in a Wales shirt. Yeah, really tough break, and wish him all the best in recovery.
Yeah, absolutely, and the same for Shido as well, because
Yeah.
absolutely gutting your first game since last year, and you pull an injury like that. Anyway, other small bit of news is Young has got. Speaking of prodigal sons coming home, Young has taken up a position with Aberdeen to run alongside his role as director of rugby for Cavok. So all the best, Di. And I hope Aberdeen have a good season. I think in the new revamped championship. I don't think the details are out yet.
I think they came out today. They are in the championship for next season.
Championship, yeah. So yeah, big of them. I feel like being slug up to the Premiership would have been a bit soon.
So who are they with there? Just out of interest, what sort of teams do they have to compete against in the championship?
Trying to think off the top of my head, Glam Wanderers they didn't get promoted from last, so they're still in it.
I think Cardiff Met are staying down, aren't they?
I think Cardiff Met may have got to the Prem. I think they snuck one of the last places from the current championship. Who else was down the bottom there? Undersea with a certain Jason Tovey at fly half will be in there next season. They've been promoted from their Division 1 as well.
Is he playing or is he coaching now?
He's doing both. He was playing at 10 and 12 for periods last season as well, which I mean, I'd pay to go and watch Undersea if Jason Tovey's a crash ball 12 there.
I'm more wondering, is he meant to be the defensive solidity they need?
I'm just thinking about what the Undersea preseason is going to be like.
It's like if Ronan O'Gara would play 12. Who's the 10 that needs safeguarding? And Ronan O'Gara has to be the 12. I just imagine that. Similar with Tovey, really, isn't it? It's a bit harsh maybe on Tovey's defensive. It wasn't that bad, but
he would make business decisions though. Let's be fair. I think even he would admit that. I'm pretty sure I might be misremembering. I'm sure I saw a quote somewhere where it said, "Well, tackling is what your back row's for." Speaking of Cardiff Met, they are going on tour to South Africa. That was something that I almost forgot but that was announced today. I haven't got any more details on that. Maybe we'll discuss next week when we've got a little bit less to talk about. And then, so obviously, leading on to the big news. Just before that, we've got the Rags have announced their leavers list. And do you want to just take everyone through some very well known and loved names in there?
Yeah, there's a couple of sort of fringe guys or guys who've just come in during the season. Ollie Evans, Eddie Drake, the two loose heads. There was Freddie Barnes, who's been around a little bit after graduating Cardiff Uni at tight head. Jacob Lloyd as well, who came in from Treorchy at fullback. But then, yeah, guys who've been around a bit the last few years. Harrison James, fly half, who's stepped in where Fishy left quite well this season at points. Aaron Pinches, who's been a great pickup, probably was, 32, 33 when he arrived, but has been really solid in that 12 jersey, played majority of games over the last 2-3 years. We knew about James Beale on the wing, who's been at the club forever, really. Overcome really serious foot injury, but scored a hell of a lot of tries off that right wing in his time. And then Joey Tomlinson, he mentioned after the game against Llandovery that he was retiring as well, had lots of injury problems this season, but great career for him. Was captain when we won the Welsh Cup again in 2019. Went to Canada for a bit, played a bit for Toronto Arrows and the MLR out there, and then has come back. And obviously the big name, I think everybody is gutted to see Morgan Allen leaving. Like proper talisman at 8. I mean, obviously the Rags don't get as much coverage as the first team, and with it being semi-pro and that, but I do think he goes down as a proper club legend, Mogsy. There, he put the Rags on his back at times, literally hauled us forward. So some of his tries are a joke. He looks like he's playing against small children as he just skittles them all out the way. But obviously is playing, but as a leader as well. You know, you look at the guys that have come through the Rags into the first team, into the Wales team. They'll have learned a hell of a lot off somebody like Morgan Allen, guys like Pinches and Tomlinson as well, James Beale. So their legacy is the trophies that we've won the last few years, but also, you know, guys like Cam Winnett, Mackenzie Martin, even a bit further back, James Botham will have been with Morgan Allen, Ben Thomas as well. Like that's their big legacy for Cardiff and for Welsh rugby, is the players that they've helped develop in the latter stages of their careers.
Well said. Don't have much to add. But yeah, apart from Morgan, yeah, what a player he's been. Be interesting to see what people think if he goes down as a Cardiff legend or not. I'd probably err on not, but that's maybe my.
I've just got a man crush on him mainly. So.
maybe my bias against the word being bandied around a bit, but at the same time, you look back the last few seasons, and that's one guy that you could always, if you were to ask the layman, name a Cardiff RFC player, that Morgan Allen would be the player, and name me who's likely to get man of the match. Morgan Allen. You know, it seemed like that was week in, week out. I think that's not just because the layman doesn't have enough information. It's because that is the name that constantly came out in any match report, in any clips on social media, and anything that was Cardiff were doing well. Morgan seemed to be right at the heart of it. So yeah, completely agree that what a player and what a time he's had at the club. So I haven't said he's not a legend. I've been giving him each praise. Maybe I'll turn my mind. Maybe we can throw that out on socials, but no, he's definitely up there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So do you think? I'm guessing this is just sort of a case of transitioning more towards a development, sort of more developmental side.
Yeah, I think Pinches and Tomlinson have called it a day. There's a suggestion that Beale's retired, but I'd also heard that he might have gone to Llandovery. So I don't know what the exact case is there. Morgan Allen's being linked with Pontypool again. He had almost signed for them last season and then came back. But yeah, I suppose the thing with these guys is that it is around their day jobs as well. So it's got to be what works for them outside rugby. They're not that young anymore. And it's got to work for the Rags in terms of our sort of succession planning as well. If we're saying Evan Rees is going to be the next number 8 for the first team, then as good as Morgan Allen's been, Evan Rees is going to have to play. So if we then say to Morgan Allen, look, you're going to play maybe half the games that you did last season, next season, he'll say, okay, don't worry, I'll go and find somewhere where I'll play every week then, because we do have to bring Evan Rees through at some point. So I'm sure. I mean, when Griff was on this pod a couple of weeks ago, and if will try and speak to Fishy at some point over the summer as well. Now he's head coach, but those guys have always got an eye on 2-3 years as well as just next season.
I'd be interested to know how much of that is players is them knowing now that the majority of the academy players are probably coming through Cardiff. Not that they weren't before, but probably even more so going into
heightened now, yeah.
Yeah, with it being them being the only club that are in Super Rygbi Cymru, of the Cardiff region clubs. And yeah, I think the main idea behind Super Rugby Cymru is to develop the youngsters coming through, and that's the priority, and has to be the priority, or certainly is the priority in the minds of the people in charge. I did say I was put a little plug in, but it's what John Alder was saying on the Sporting Wales podcast this week. John Alder, WR's head of performance pathway, and that is the important thing, is we are looking at that succession planning and trying to develop that area of the game now. And whether you think it's right or wrong, that is why it's a closed off league with no promotion, no relegation, to try and help clubs and try and basically say to clubs, right, if there's no trepidation of dropping down the leagues, so therefore play your youngsters and give your youngsters an opportunity, and that works all through the league. And that's going to be a case. We're going to see quite a few of these more experienced heads perhaps not getting the opportunity that they were in the Welsh Premiership going forward. Yeah, you're going to need to have a few of them, your likes of your Adam Warrens, and it's a shame that Morgan Allen isn't there to sort of help these players coming through. And it's that balancing act, isn't it? When does an experienced player become a blockade for young talent coming through? And we've seen it at different clubs. Maybe you could suggest Scarlets haven't managed to get that balance, and then you could see other clubs that have not. Cardiff maybe on the vice versa side probably haven't had that balance in the other way, where they haven't. A lot of the experienced players have gone, so it's a difficult balance to have going forward, I think.
And I would say that obviously the squads and the semi-pro, it doesn't necessarily mean just because somebody's not on that leavers list they won't be leaving as well. It's always in a bit of flux. But the Rags, if that is the only leavers, they retain. Jason Harris is still there, been there and done it across the back line. Tom Haberfield's not on that list, been there and done it in 9. A couple of guys now who've been in that semi-pro squad for a bit as well. I would say, somebody like Derry Cross is getting really experienced at that level. Joe Goodchild, Sean Moore's been around quite a long time now as well. Alan Rees at hooker. There is still that senior group of semi-pros there at the Rags. It's just the more recognizable names for the last few years moving on a bit, but the average age will still be, decently high with those sort of guys around.
Yeah, it's so important as well to have those guys.
Yeah,
people talk about it, and I think it's difficult, but the whole importance of setting standards and having that person that you can turn to and see what they're doing week in, week out in their preparation for, it's something that's going to come up in talking to one of our founders about their column this month, and that's exactly what they were talking about. Is he's having these experienced heads that you can just look at and go, oh shit, he's doing X, Y, Z. This is what I need to be doing this week. Why are he's spending an hour kicking after training, and it might not be as simplistic as that, as watching someone doing an hour's kicking after training. It might be something as minuscule as he's tidying up after training, but it's those small little bits that teach you what a professional rugby player or semi-pro professional rugby player does, and and those bits of analysis as well as on top of it. So it's a balancing act. I'm hoping they get the right balance moving forward, both Cardiff and all the other clubs in the Super Rugby, because it's a very important one for the future of Welsh rugby.
Yeah, absolutely. As you sort of led into, so the big story Sunday nights, in typical WRU fashion, they dropped the format for the new for the elite development competition, which is being rebranded as Super Rygbi Cymru. So this is going to be a regular season of 18 games, 9 home, 9 away, ending with every single team getting a knockout fixture at the end. So two wild card, almost round of 16 type things, where 7th place, 10th, 8th place, 9th to go into the quarterfinals. We also have our own version of the Run 30 Shields, which is going to be held by Llandovery at the start as the Premiership winners for this season. And there's also, during the Six Nations, we're also going to get a cup competition, 2 pools of 5. Top of each pool plays each other in the final. Gentlemen, what do we think of that? What do we make of the whole format so far?
I'm not a big fan of everyone getting a chance to be in the knockouts. That's my
I'm going
first.
to counter that in a second, but please go on.
I'm just not a big fan of it. Well, I watched quite a bit of ice hockey this season, and it's a 10-team league, and 8 of the teams get into the knockouts, and you get to the stage at one stage of the season where teams 1 to 4 are just playing out their fixtures, and it just gets a little bit bland. And that's my opinion. I get why they've done it, but that's my honest opinion. Yeah, I'm also not a fan of getting rid of relegation, but and I know both of the reasons why they've done it is to instill and try and encourage them to play their younger players, but that's my main issue with it. Sorry, Harley, you were going to counter, so I was waiting for you.
So my because I hate it, because I hate the fact Super Rugby's 8 is 12 team league, and they have the top 8 get through, and basically you can get in with and similar with what's happening with European rugby at the moment. But I think because it's a development competition, one of the big issues that we're seeing is we don't have players who know what it's like to be in these knockout games. On rare occasion they do, because they never play a knockout fixture. So actually, by everyone having it, you're giving all the younger players experience of knockout fixtures. Whether or not that the values of the league later on, maybe that's something they review in later tournaments. But for me, I think it's important that they all experience knockout rugby, even if it is just one game. Yeah.
But
Dan, I think you brought...
sorry, just to jump in. But if I was say a club here, and I'd say Carmarthen Quins, just because they're the lowest team that are going to go into that. You play your youngsters throughout the season, and then you get to the knockout opportunities, and you think, oh, there's a chance of silver here. I'm going to play my best team. And you end up playing all the experienced players, and you drop your youngsters just for the playoffs. Like, what's to stop you doing that? And therefore, the youngsters don't get the experience of playing these big games. The youngsters don't get the experience of having these opportunities. I'm just playing devil's advocate here, but it doesn't sit well with me to have a 10-team league, and there's very little benefit from being 1st to 10th in a way. I know the seeding's different, and you get buys and stuff like that, but in terms of ensuring that you get into playoffs, there's no benefit.
I think as well, I mean, to go with the first point, because I do agree on the second bit in principle, but from what it says is there's going to be allocations, and you've got to have a certain number of academy players in your team. And also, because of the salary cap only being 150,000, you can't really load your squad that way anyway. So you've got to have senior, it's got to be filled with senior academy players or people who've recently been released from academy. So I think that's...
I do appreciate that. I don't know. At base, I do think Super Rugby is a good thing, by the way. But this is just my small issues I've got with certain things, and I think the rebrand was a good idea because it was rather too similar to a far right movement. So it's a good decision to rebrand, I think.
Yeah. Dan, one thing you highlighted before we get your general thoughts is about the derby weekends either side of Christmas. I think I agree with you. I think that's actually a fantastic little bit to again get the it's given them that experience of big proper derby games.
Yeah, I mean, to sit on the fence, I have no strong feelings either way about the playoffs thing, to be honest. But on just I think it's a really good general season structure. The way that the fixtures have come out, the amount of games that there are, because you had a couple of the EDC naysayers giving it, well, you're only going to be playing 7 games a year, so what's the point? But I think it's 24 games you're guaranteed or something like that when you factor in the cup and your one guaranteed playoff, which is, I think the Rags played 27 this year, so there's no real change there. 24 higher quality games is as good as 27 games in the current league. Fixtures look really decent. Like, obviously skipping that November period, the cup then will be probably almost a development competition within a development competition, because obviously it's Six Nations time, so the under-20s will be missing, so it'd be more about using the wider squad, and probably a good chance for clubs maybe to pick up a couple of permits from the lower leagues who also tend not to play in the Six Nations and have a look if guys in there can step up. So as John Alder talked about on Sporting Wales podcast about widening the net, it does that again. It gives more players a chance to play at that higher level and get into the environment with the Super Rygbi Cymru clubs. So I think quite weirdly to say for a Welsh Rugby Union competition, but it's come out in good time and it looks sort of half coherent, which is it's a change from the norm, but hopefully it stays.
And doing a better plug for the podcast I produce than I do. I completely agree with what Dan said though, I do think I do think it's a positive thing. I really do, and I do like that there's change. We were talking about it before the pod, weren't we? And saying that whether you think it's a good thing or a bad thing, at least it's not the status quo. And I think things needed to change, and they have made changes. They made changes to the Schools and Colleges League. They're now making changes to this league. They've made changes in the women's game with the PDCs. This is positive. They are making they're trying to make positive changes. Whether or not you agree with them, maybe not, but at least it's not the status quo, which I think is a really good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. There's no point moaning about the status quo and then doing nothing about it.
Exactly.
So yeah, good for that. So just a few other little bits. So as I said, there's salary cap £150,000 that all the teams agreed to. There are going to be some allowances for dual registered players, which I don't know if that's Premiership players on permit coming up, or if it's first teamers coming down. And the senior academy, there's also going to be some allowances for recently released players from either the under 18s or senior academies, which I think is a good way to accommodate for the regions not being able to keep everything they want, but also having these keeping them in this competition. Match funding.
Yeah, and one of the important parts of that is to try and encourage those players that take a bit longer to develop. So you're talking about your tight head props that perhaps are, I'm going to say piss poor, but that's a bit harsh, are maybe not up to the grade at 21, but maybe in 4 or 5 years' time could be regional quality, maybe even better than that. And it's about those players and ensuring that they still have a place in Wales to play and an opportunity to shine. And I think that's a brilliant thing. I think it's really important and a great incentive to bring in.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other comments before we move on?
I just realised I sounded like a backtrack from the start when I criticised one bit, and now I've been positive ever since. But I am mainly positive about it. No, I haven't got anything else to add. It should be an interesting one.
Yep. Nope. Right, so now we'll move on to last weekend's game because it was a win for Cardiff, which is something that we have not said very often on this podcast. As was tweeted out by Dan, we got the right kind of bonus point by scoring 4 tries. Just thought before we give you our thoughts, I'm just going to read some of the 3-word thoughts that we got from the Twitterers and Facebook. So, bloody brilliant win! Thank fuck, finally, at last, wonderful. Never in doubt. Finally win. Guess which one was Big T? Nose. And then on the Facebook we had much needed win. Ben at 10, and what I very much agree with is sign up Lawrence. I think for most of us that covers it. It wasn't necessarily the prettiest win, but it was a win, and it was a piss poor Sharks side. But I mean, if they're going to disrespect, if I said this on Rap, if you're going to disrespect Cardiff, a team you've not been able to beat in the URC so far by putting out a second team, then you don't deserve to win either. Especially after that first 10 minutes where they refused so many kickable points, which Carlin was happy about.
Yeah, they listened. It's good.
Well, no, I'm saying it's the Sharks who didn't kick.
No, it was just we needed to win, and it was by any means necessary. It didn't need to be the prettiest. It was maybe I saw a couple of people mention it as possibly a performance of the season, but I feel like that's maybe more of a relief type aspect of just finally getting a win, which we've, you can't say you deserve anything in professional sport. It doesn't work like that. But if there was a group of players that like sort of you felt should be rewarded for something, it's this group and this staff and us as supporters as well. It was nice for us to watch them win. You don't really realize when you're in it, but it was 10 games or whatever, the losing streak. It was quite a long time since we'd last won this calendar year. But on the whole, first 20 minutes defended really well. Sharks started quite quick. Josh Adams, that turnover was superb on our own line. The red card is an absolute horror show of a tackle. I mean, it is a stinker.
I think it could have easily been 2 cards.
Oh, I
Harsher
don't
would have given
quite
2
know
cards,
how Frank took so long to decide, to be honest. But anyway, and the only other thing I'd add for that is, I mean, how when it stays on the pitch as well, to be honest, because he looked out when he hit the ground. I don't think it's a slight on our medical team as such. I think World Rugby should be mandating there that if there's a red card for head contact, the player receives it should automatically go for a HIA. I don't really see how they don't. But
Agreed.
but after that, then I thought it was massive that we scored straight away. Because we've seen us this season go up against teams who've had yellow cards, and I feel the sense I get is that we feel that we have to score so badly in that 10 minutes that we end up like panicking, or like the pressure, we just can't deal with it. But scoring from the penalty that we received from the red card incident, I think just settled everybody really quickly. And from there on, then the rest of that first half, they weren't particularly pretty tries. Halaholos is classic Willis. But other than that, it's all like maul stuff and pick and go and that. But it was just clinical. We got into the red zone. We didn't mess up. We didn't lose the ball. We were relatively patient with what we did. A little bit of magic from Alan Lawrence, who was fantastic on the day. A real shame he went off early. He was a shoe-in for man of the match, otherwise I would suggest. But yeah, did what we had to do. Second half, a bit disappointing. The subs ruined the flow slightly for us. They didn't quite come on and hit the ground running. I thought where we were, we could have been just a bit more patient with our attack, built some phases through midfield, but we went to kick quite a lot. And in terms of managing the game, that's not a bad thing. I think I'd probably being a bit picky maybe and saying that maybe at 29-7 up, we could have afforded ourselves just to take the reins off a little bit and try and see what we could do in attack and build some phases. But in terms of being sensible and keeping the Sharks down the other end of the pitch, it was probably the right way to go. But yeah, all in all, I think a solid 7 out of 10 performance and a bonus point win to take back. I can't ask for much more than that, really.
Yeah, I said talking about like building an attack. So just the bit that URC send all us podcasters about stats, and they'll publish on the website as well. So big congratulations. James Botham got the most turnovers with 3, but also scored a try. Cardiff made the fewest carries out of any team, but still scored 5 tries. I'm very impressed. We managed to carry exactly 69 times, which the immature person in me just went, nice. But averaging 4.9 meters a carry, which is the highest of any team in the round. So that's good. We had 91% tackle success, which I know isn't everything, but if you are getting high 90s, that's a good sign that either the opposition attacks shit or your defense is at least holding together. Well, in Sharks only got 71%, which is when you do start getting worried. We kept Sharks to just 1 clean break, which is and only 11 defenders beaten, which is the lowest for both of the lowest in the league this round. So that's quite promising for us. Yeah, I thought Alan Lawrence was immense. Cam Winnett, even despite them trying to savagely take him out of the game, still ruled the skies. Yeah, I said it probably wasn't the prettiest performance, but quite happy with it. What did you make of it, Cohen?
Yeah, I just say you're reeling off those stats, and those are the stats I'd expect from a side that were playing against 14 men. I'm not, and that's not me being harsh. That's actually me for once.
Yeah,
a Welsh side have played well against 14 men. I haven't seen it for a long time, or 14 women for that fact. And it sounds like another rant, but it's genuinely the case. And I thought it was a really professional performance. It was a way to put away a side that were down a player, and echo Dan's thoughts on the red card. Jeez Louise. I was stood in the Ospreys press room for that one, and Toby Booth came in and posed his head. It was like, "Oh, what do we think, lads?" And we all looked at it and went, jeez, like tucked arm. What? Anyway, moving on. But yeah, I don't know why that took so long. Ben, brilliant at 10, and Alan. You say about Alan performing well. I thought he spoke so well. Was it last week in interviews? The things about feeling low and the feel about coming back and performing well, brilliant. Really, really good post-match interviews. Some really nice pieces done on that, and worthwhile done because he spoke so well on it. And it was nice to see so many players that have played with him coming out, and I even saw, I think Jamie Hill put something out commenting about it and things like that. So it was really nice to see the outpouring of emotion for him, really, wasn't it? After what's been a difficult few years. Speaking of Jamie Hill, I saw some clips of his down in Australia as well. So before getting off topic more and more, the interesting one is Ben Thomas, obviously, from that game, I think, because I'm not going to say I told you so because it's not at all. But from the perspective of wanting to see him at 10 at the start of the season, which I did, I know Gatlin did, and various, not that I've got speed out to Gatlin, but he has commented about it in the past. And it's nice to see him getting the opportunity. Tinas has been brilliant, but I do think there's an opportunity there to trial him out more. And after that performance, I suspect he will start at 12 against Ospreys, but there is an opportunity there for maybe him to get into the 10 shirt or in the 22 shirt for Wales come the summer. And that's what I'd like to see, because he deserves to be in that 23. He deserves to be on that plane to Australia. And whether that's a 10 or 12, I hope it happens after a brilliant performance against Sharks.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, 4 out of 5. 4 out of 5. Well, yeah, 4 out of 5 kicks. No, did he? No, it's more than that, wasn't it? Yeah, because he did a couple of penalties as well. I know he missed a conversion, but I think he carried it. Yeah, which it was a difficult one. Which maybe also vindicates something else we've been saying on the pod of maybe take that pressure off De Beer. I mean, if Ben Thomas is happy as a goal kicker, I know tens like some tens like to be the man and do the kicking, but at the end of the day, especially the margins we've been losing by this season, having a 90%, an 80 to 90% goal kicker is invaluable.
It's interesting that Thomas kept the tee when De Beer come on as well. That he just kicked all the way through, which suggests that De Beer was happy for him to do that. So they hopefully. The other thing I'd say about his kicking is he kicked beautifully for touch at penalties as well. I mean, some of the touch finders were absolutely superb, and I think that probably says as much. We always know he's been a good footballer, but I think it says so much about just how much confidence he's playing with at the moment. He looks like somebody who's going to do something every time he gets the ball, whether it's carrying himself or putting somebody into space or producing a nice kick. It's back to the Ben Thomas who was just imperious for the Rags in that sort of Welsh Cup winning team 2018-19. I think he's gone up and down, not to any of his own something of his own making, but he's been in and out of teams and he hasn't fully staked his claim. But yeah, he's had this run of games this season. He's bulked up slightly. He's playing in a team that really suits him, and yeah, he just looks like he could pull off any piece of skill he wanted at the moment. And that game against South Africa will be outside of the international window for Wales in the summer, so Nick Tompkins isn't going to be there. I'm struggling to see why you wouldn't start Ben at 12 in that game at this point.
Watkins probably Watkin and
I just think we've seen Watkin.
Llewellyn
won't be available either. Outside of the window, so I just think you go for it.
The only reason I would probably put it is we're most likely going to have Grady at 13 because he's next cab off the rank with no George North, and with an inexperienced 10 in Costello, Owen Watkins, the steady and hand on ship, I don't think he's the best option at 12. But I'd say, I would quite like to see Costello, Thomas, and Grady, because I think that could be a very interesting midfield. I don't think it's a winning midfield, but it could be interesting. But I feel like Owen Watkins would be there as that experienced head, that's where I see that, and then you might have Thomas on the bench coming off. That's where I'd be leaning towards it. But yeah, I think Ben Thomas has been fantastic and definitely deserves a call up for thing. Speaking of well deserved, unless anyone has any more thoughts on the game, now that we've officially put the Turks back in their place, they could beat us as the second best team in Wales. We showed you. Right, so moving on to our I nailed that word earlier in the intro and I've done it. Our first ever
Here
Cardiff
goes your
Central
question thrown in
there. So we came up with, so we only put this out this afternoon, so thank you for everyone who's responded already. So main categories we're looking at are Player of the Year, Breakthrough Player of the Year, so sort of people who've come up through the academy, etc. Signing of the Year, Try of the Year, Performance of the Year. I believe that's everything, and our unsung hero. They're so unsung, I even forgot about their award. So before we sort of go through our picks, to be honest, I think we agree a lot with what these. So some of the names we've got. So for Player of the Season, Liam Belcher, Ben Thomas, Mason Grady, De Beer. I think they're the main ones. We've had one Ospreys fan coming in, giving us all Ospreys players. No, look, you can't get into a Wales team. You're sure as hell not getting into a bloody Cardiff team.
And
So
Beard from Tad
player,
Cymru said Dan Fish as well. We should put him in.
Fish,
Yeah.
Sorry, we should have put the caveat in. The best player in these categories who isn't Dan Fish. I love the particular Dan Fish try against Dan Fish in the Dan Fish versus Dan Fish game. Unfortunately, that's not quite in the remit. And there was the most improved player as well. I suppose there was another one. And then Young Player of the Year is unanimously can win it. I would like to add. I thought Alex Mann has had a fantastic breakthrough season. Mackenzie Martin when he's been called upon again. Unsung hero mostly gone for Liam Belcher, but a couple for Thomas Young, who I can't believe anyone thinks he's unsung, but fair enough. Ben Dole's been on that one. Signing of the season again. De Beer, Rhys Littrick, Ben Donnell as well, I think, has made a very strong late surge for that one. I'm not going to go through Try of the Season because Dan has has a long list of, because he went and watched all the tries back because,
Don't tell my employer.
Do not tell Swansea University what Dan does during work time.
So there was a couple of good suggestions on that. Just quickly, Cabango. I liked Cabango's hat trick try against Ulster, which
that was mine.
It was a good try, but also bad memories. But people's remembering of the tries. I don't remember half of them before I watched them. I have to say,
have you got Cabango pre-season against Scarlets?
I didn't. I couldn't find any footage. Did we put any footage out in the end? But yeah, I mean, that was a good try. Cabango's on here quite a bit, to be fair to him. Azarati was mentioned. The Dragons finish where he just rolled past everybody. Who else? The Cabango, the main one that I really like as well. The Scarlets one, the little chip kick across from Cam Winnett, I think, wasn't it? And then Cabango just goes, obviously injures himself at the end, so it's a bittersweet moment. But great finish. Cabango's second against Ulster was mentioned a few times. Thomas Young against Harlequins, the second one where Harry Millar gets that offload away from sort of absolutely nowhere. His arm just appears. So yeah, some good options there.
For Performance of the Year, we've had, as Dan mentioned, last week's game against the Sharks. The games against Munster and Ulster being quite high up as well, and home to the Stormers. And Boxing Day against the Dragons, but I'm still not sure if that's that. I'm still not sure how much of that was us being well, and how much of that was the Dragons just being catastrophically cat.
Bath up there as well.
Yeah, Bath. Bath had a lot. I actually think the Racing game as well. If we're looking at the European games, I thought we were very good there. For the most part, despite the scoreline, the Toulouse game, I thought we played reasonably well. We just got Toulouse.
I can also put Scarlet's pre-season on this.
We won the one that really counted, the one with no league points on it.
Genuinely, played really well.
It was a very good game.
The kings of pre-season.
And some brilliant tries from Cabango. and some brilliant touches from Marwell Robson as well, by the way. But that's by the by. Yeah, I am actually gonna. Well, I'm not gonna nail my colours to a
We
mast, but I'm
did.
probably
Sorry,
gonna
I did
pick
miss an
Theo's try.
unsung hero nomination, which is Scott Andrews, which actually
Oh
is
yeah,
one
I
I
like that.
fully
That was
agree
Tony,
with.
wasn't it? Yeah, I
Yeah,
like that.
obviously not so much for his on pitch, but rather the results of his coaching, which actually, given how a lot of us being in these games has been our pack standing up, despite the comments about us being a bit powder puff. Scott Andrews has done an awful lot to help remedy that. So actually, yeah, I think Bubba does deserve a good shout for that one. So any names you want to pull out you want to establish on our shortlist, and we'll publish the shortlist out either after as the pod goes out or around next week, and we start doing vote.
Yeah, I
voting.
really like the Reece Belcher. Reece Belcher?
Reece Belcher, he's
Sorry.
combined them.
I tell you what is going on is I'm thinking Reece Litterick unsung I really like, and I really like Belcher for player of the season. I do like that shout. I hadn't actually wasn't the first name that jumped to my mind, but I think he's been super consistent and brilliant whenever needed, and as a brilliant captain. I would put Ben Thomas up there. I would also put Cam up there. I know we're talking about him for young player, but he has been up there for player as well for me. Those would be the three that jump out to me straight away. I don't know if either of you lads agree or disagree, or have anyone you'd want to include as well.
No, I agree. I agree with those three, and I mean, Tabia was mentioned quite a bit by people on Twitter and Facebook as well as player of the season. I mean, I think pretty much walk signing of the season, but I think those four as a short list to put out on a Twitter poll or whatever is I don't think anyone would argue with that, certainly.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I said I think we'll collect these and we'll put them out because otherwise I'll miss stuff when I try and write and do this, or I forget to do it entirely. So I think so. We're saying for player of the season, we're looking at Ben Thomas, Belcher, De Beer,
and can win it.
And can win it.
Yeah,
that's good. Breakthrough, young player. I'm saying, it's Cam Lord, the Skies win it, as Tony's put it, which I've just noticed there, and it's made me chuckle. So Mackenzie Martin, Axeman, I think have all done very well. Any other ones for young player? I'd say Evan Lloyd when he has come on.
Yeah.
Well, where do we stand on Bevan?
Too old, I think.
Yeah,
for a rough under. I think he's 24 now, is he?
Yeah.
My argument would be it's definitely been a breakthrough season, and I think he's been very good for a breakthrough season.
Yeah,
if we're talking breakthrough,
yeah. I mean,
that's another.
Mason Grady is. I mean, you certainly the young player thing. Theo Cabango is young enough as well. Teddy's still only 23. I think it's largely irrelevant who the other three names are because Cam Winnett might get 100% of the vote.
I think he's got 100. Let's be honest. If we did a vote on this pod now, the three of us here, Cam Winnett would get 100% of the votes.
I think you'd have to be very avant-garde to pick anyone other than Cam Winnett for young / breakthrough player of the year for Cardiff and probably for Wales as well, to be honest. But I mean, you could put Cam Winnett and then just three other spellings of Cam Winnett potentially, and
Win Camet,
Cameron Winnett, and do a full name in or something. But we have. I mean, that's the thing is that we have had so many young players this year come through and make a real impression that you could probably do two lots of four as a joint poll there almost. We have just played.
It'd be semis and finals.
Yeah, like Gabe Hamer-Webb would technically be young enough still as well for the bits that we've seen of him. There's been a lot of good stuff. And the other player, just to go back to player of the season briefly, I wouldn't include him before, but if he'd stayed fit, I mean, Thomas was superb in that first half of the season.
Eddie
as well, actually, for that matter.
I mean, he gets penalised because he got injured, not his fault. But yeah, just while I was thinking of people in the list go through the squad, and Thomas Williams' name came up. If he was still fit now, he'd have walked player of the season, I think. But yes, Cam, Mackenzie, Alex Mann, Teddy Williams, Mason Grady, Theo Cabango, Evan Lloyd are the names I wrote down for young player, and I think you could pick three of any of the others other than Cam Winnett, really. I think you could probably make a case for any of them.
Yeah. Oh, I think I agree there. Any pushback on that one, Darwin? Are you happy?
No, I was just trying to work out who would my preference be of those. Was it 4 for 1? Isn't it? Four.
There's Cam and then 3 others.
So you got to have man.
Yeah.
I then feel you've almost got to have Grady,
Yeah.
which is harsh on Mackenzie Martin. And then
But you're still liking Bevan. Are you his number 4?
no, I just feel Bevan's had a good season.
Mm.
I consider him a breakthrough. Maybe that's harsh on Theo, but Theo's probably had a breakthrough as well, considering his injuries.
Yeah.
So that's the other one probably that I'd be touching on is Theo. Um, Even though he's been injured for a lot spell of this calendar year, he was brilliant and has been brilliant since. So that's probably the fourth I would go for, but maybe that's a bit harsh on Mackenzie Martin, especially considering he found himself in Wales colours, 4 months into playing professional rugby. So
I think maybe that is one we need to do a semis and a final for. Moving on to best team performance. Again, for me, probably that Bath game, even if we did come on the wrong side of the draw. Another one which I thought we played actually quite well, even though it was a horrid game, was the Bulls game, which again we were quite unlucky to run out of gas towards the end, but I thought we did very well to keep a team that is averaging 30, 40 points a game. We kept them to 16?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's probably a sad summary of the season that we're looking for games where we've just sort of pushed teams quite well. But yeah, in terms of where we are, you have to say like Munster away, Glasgow away, going up there and getting bonus points is even in a successful season would be a good performance, I would say. Bath was like we played well in the Bath game, and I think you could almost pick it just for sort of like occasion of the season type thing as well. It was such a good night, that Bath game. You'd have to the Drags game. Well, yeah, they were really poor. I think you have to include it just because we've absolutely battered them pretty much.
Just because it single-handedly put us on top of the try scorers.
Yeah,
so we were in the top 3 for try scorers for the next 6 rounds because of that 9 try.
Yeah, I mean, it also gives us a really funny points difference in that Welsh. I don't quite understand the Welsh Shield thing. I think it's only in the derbies that counts, the one that they've got on the website. But it gives us a really funny points difference of like plus 80 or something like that overall. Because like we were absolutely battered.
We're actually only on about plus 25. But,
Yeah,
it was still pretty good, yeah.
It's just it looks funny because everyone else is on sort of like 1 or minus something, and we've just artificially inflated our own scoreline for just running in like how many? I can't remember how many tries it was in the end. It was a good amount.
It was 9 tries.
There we go. But yeah, I think you have to put that. But yeah, Racing, we did play well. We played pretty well at Ulster. I mean, the thing about that Ulster one is if that last try goes in, you probably put it in because we've beaten them out there. And it's only because it gets chalked off that it probably drops off the list then, which is the cruel fate of sport reaching these awards. But yeah, I think I definitely have Bath, Dragons, and probably Munster as 3, and then 1 other maybe.
I think we could probably put the Ulster game in there for that.
The clickbait in me wants to say Ulster.
Yeah.
Just because you'd get plenty of that sounds cynical and working for maybe other organisations. But the not my own. There we go. But I think yeah, Ulster was. I think it was a good performance. Yeah, you've got to have dragons. You've got to have sharks. So I'd agree with those 4. I think unless unless you put Scarlet's pre-season, but the Harley, do you have any other suggestions?
Stormers game in as well, as that was game was actually a very good win
as well. Yeah,
good, happily.
Cool. What's the next one?
So the next one now is your specialty, Dan. So best try.
Right, this is going to be tough to get down to 4, actually, because we have scored some good tries this year, particularly first
Yeah.
half of the season.
I think I'll go through one of my favourites. I can't remember. It was definitely. I'm pretty sure it was Munster, but it might have been the Glasgow game. But the Ben Thomas intercept
Yeah,
from 90 meters out.
Munster that was. Yeah, that one.
It's usually one I discount from try of the season because it's it's a bit exciting. But just seeing that gas and the brilliant read.
Has to be one of the favourites, isn't it? That one,
It's
one
definitely
of the
one of the ones I
favourites.
saw.
Yeah,
like a popular one. He scored a good try against Glasgow as well. Ben Thomas scores the one where Max Clark and Young, and then Bevan and De Beer have linked up before Thomas goes wide. So that was on the list there. Ones I mentioned earlier, Azarati, that was mentioned online. Young second against Quins. The Cabango second try against Ulster was mentioned in a more serious one where Thomas plays the miss pass and then Cabango skins the last man. Cabango against the Scarlets, and that Ben Thomas against Glasgow was mentioned as well. I liked.
I just thought, shall we just rename this the Theo Cabango Award for best
Yeah,
try
it is
by Theo
becoming a bit
Cabango, and then we can do the rest.
I like Thomas's second try against the Dragons on Boxing Day as well, where
that was good.
Lilo puts him in, and it still takes a lot of finishing from Thomas there to get over the line. But we scored some really good tries. I think Cabango against the Scarlets is definitely there for the cross kick, and then Cabango going 70 meters and beating the last man. That's my personal favourite of the year.
You've also got Rhys Littrick's first ever try, which I can't even remember which game it was, but I just remember us being very happy for him.
Did we win that game?
Did he? It
was the Stormers winning try, wasn't it? Yeah. That's another a favourite one as well, same as the Thomas Munster one.
I kind of want to put Grady's one as well up there. It's from that game, isn't it? Where
Stormers, he goes through the middle.
Yeah, it's more. To be fair, it's not. It's not perhaps the try itself. It's more to do with what happened around the try with Ellis Jenkins telling Mackenzie Martin his role and all those elements going into it. But probably feeding more into that favourite try element that Harley's talked about, the backstory behind the try. Good grief. But yeah, that's probably more where I'm thinking. But it'd be interesting if we had this for fans that were there and did see it. Theo Cabango's try against Scarlets in pre-season. And I know I'm banging on about this, but it was one hell of an effort.
It's going to have one vote, and it's going to be you.
Yeah, it will be me. But I remember being there, and because I haven't managed to make many games throughout the season through various commitments, but the commentary box and everyone around, it was basically he got the ball and everyone just went beep, beep, bye-bye, and he was gone. And he broke through about 3 defenders, then it's brilliant, absolutely brilliant try. Brilliant.
I'm surprised you didn't pick the try which you called, which was off the back of the line-out move you called like the week before. Cabango coming, cutting the angle off the back of the line-out to score.
Yeah, against Ulster.
Yeah,
where I say target
Ulster, yeah.
Where Ulster play with a hooker as a gunner.
Lots of people mentioned Young second against Quins as well, so I think
that was good.
They'll have to go in there for. Well, Millard's break is the main thing. I've never seen anybody move so quickly. She absolutely flew onto the ball.
Surprised there's not more carry references. Considering
how many you can just basically sum Carey's tries up into one where he just takes that hard line off a few meters out and just barrows over, and you could probably just stick about 12 of them in one go. And you wouldn't even, if you didn't notice the jersey on the opposition, you pin them all as the same try sometimes. But
there was the Leinster one, and the Edinburgh one, which are sort of similar moves where he's scored. I think they're just. I mean, you could have a sort of carry try the season where it's all sort of the same try like 5 times. See which one he just feels like he looks best in or something like that.
Moving on to the unsung heroes. So I think we've named some of the big ones. Belcher, just purely for how he's grown into the captaincy and just always been there. I actually quite like Scott Andrews as one. So I think he deserves a nomination just for how.
Yeah, it's a good shout though.
Rhys Littrick would be.
I think. I think just purely because he's going to be edged out of the next award. I think he deserves a crack at this one because with Azarati being injured and away with Wales duties, he was our linchpin in the scrum, and he did a hell of a job against some very, very good packs. Glad he had a decent outing against the Sharks, or again, it's on a scrum that was beating up South Africans. So, right, admittedly, it wasn't their box, but South Africans don't do shit scrummages, so that's a good thing. Any other unsung heroes, or are they that unsung we've forgotten them?
I heard the people. So Donald and Teddy were mentioned online, which are decent
I like
shouts.
Donald as a shout.
Yeah, I wrote Millard as a possible one as well. I think he's looked pretty good on the wing.
Had a fantastic season as well.
I had Bevan in this list rather than as breakout. It's just unsung. I just think he's just been there all season, and he hasn't really put a foot wrong. He had the charge down at the end on the weekend, and I do think he's got to work on his setup of his box kicks a bit. I think he got sort of spooked a bit because he got called for being too slow at the end of the first half, where Frank was, I don't know, he just had a bad 5 minutes and he was being a bit arsey or something. So he pinged him, but he's definitely improved throughout the course of the season, and having minutes in the saddles definitely helped that. And then I put Thornton down as well as a bit of recency bias, because I thought he was quite good on the weekend, to be honest. Over the whole season, he may not get in there, but last few weeks where one of Teddy and Seb has been unavailable pretty much every game, he's played pretty well. But I definitely like Belcher, Andrews and Litterick, and then I don't know, a toss up between a couple of those. Teddy's a good shout, Donald's a good shout. Probably Teddy over Donald just because he's been here all season. I think Teddy probably gets overlooked in the second row chat a bit because he's not in a particularly dominant pack. I feel like if Teddy was playing in the Ospreys pack at the moment, he'd get talked up a lot more as an international option.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting one though. I think, are we talking unsung here in terms of pundits, or are we talking Cardiff fans? Because I've heard a lot of praise.
Yeah, that's fair.
I tell you, I've heard a lot of praise, particularly on this pod.
Yeah,
for Teddy, and I think Harley and I have been at the early part of the season. Yourself, Dan, as well, been giving him a lot of praise, and I think during European time he stood up massively, and I think he was. So and it's almost it's almost, it sounds harsh, but I'm almost not. I wouldn't put Teddy on the basis that I don't think he's been unsung, because I think he's deservedly been getting heaps and heaps of praise. But in a wider scale, I get your point about.
Yeah, I would. The only thing I would say is that, does Belcher come into that category then as well, potentially?
Yeah, see your point. Yeah,
Cardiff fans have been talking him up all season as the captain as well. So it's, I see what you mean, but I just think, like, it's maybe it can be both to a degree. Like some unsung outside of Cardiff and some unsung within Cardiff a little bit.
I quite like the Millard shout as well, by the way.
When Teddy got his call up, I think a lot of people were like, yeah, that makes sense. There weren't many people going, but yeah, I do like Millard as a shout. I'd probably put Millard in.
There you go. Belcher, Bubba, Millard and Litterick is the four unsung.
Yep, there we go for a sign.
A good stock there. I think that's another potentially foregone conclusion, and that Belcher may walk that one as well, to be honest. Just judging by the responses on the social media, it was pretty much all Belcher.
Yeah, that's it. I said I quite like the Scott Andrews one. Signing of the season then.
De Beer, let's go home.
Yeah, it's the cans award. It's the bag of cans award for Tina Stabia being Tina Stabia. But I would like to say is up until his injury, I think Rhys Litterick had a very good shout to that.
Yeah, he would definitely be in
second half of the season. Ben Donnell. So I think it is worth just sort of giving these guys mentions. Yeah. Actually, I thought Max Clark, for what little opportunities he's had, I think he's done exactly what we wanted him to do, with how we were signed to be that sort of backup centre option, and I think he's been incredibly solid. He's really good depth filler.
Yeah, I had Hamer Webb, and on a technical, I mean, technically Alan Lawrence is a new signing as well. Having come back, that is that's a recency bias one as well, slightly, because he only really played the last few weeks. But that fourth spot, I'm happy with Clark, but it's not with nods to Hamer Webb and Lawrence as well. I was having a look at our signings, because I actually wondered at one point, had we made 4 signings? Of course, there are a couple of names on there who I had forgotten about. Josh Reynolds from the Dragons. I don't know if he actually ever got on the pitch in the end either. He could go in there for banter.
He got on, gave away a penalty, and that was the end of the game.
Oh, my bad.
something like that. It was one of the very early games because
he was undercover, I think, sent to spy on us. Kieran Parker was the other new signing, but I don't think he gets into this list ahead of the names that we mentioned.
I think it's too hard to make.
Yeah, unfortunate for him, injury and sending off. Well, it's not his fault, but he just doesn't quite get in.
Yeah, I think he's not enough of a portfolio work to judge him on for that.
I suppose for just naming everyone, Gonzalo as well, but he doesn't come into this list due to the fact it's 2 or 3 games. But
yeah.
I really like Hamer Webb's influence in his games. I've really enjoyed. I would say that. I think for very few games, and similarly Alan Lawrence recently as well, but for the very few games they've played, I feel they've had a massive influence in those games. But I'm not. I know Harley's a massive fan of Max Clark, and Max Clark has been incredibly consistent whenever he's played. So I'd like that. I'm pretty happy with all, so long as they get a shout out.
That Hamer Webb break on the weekend was, I mean, we haven't had a winger to do that sort of thing for a little while. We've got quick wingers who can get through, but in terms of just busting through a few tackles and then heading off upfield, he is some athlete. And it like somebody mentioned on Twitter, I can't remember who it was now, but it was Chris Miles who was. He said about the Wales honours would be calling, and Gatland's got to be just on a sort of archetypal Gatland winger. I mean, he's big, he's physical, he's quick, he seems to have a really good understanding of the game and where he can best impact it, coming off his wing at the right times and stuff. Yeah, I mean, not to immediately send him back into the national team after we've only just signed him, but you think it is a relatively competitive position, the back three, but he wouldn't be far off in the standings necessarily.
Yeah,
it's not that competitive.
Yeah, I was going to say exactly the
same. When you think of who you've got,
I think less competitive and more. Maybe what I'm searching for is the ones who are in are quite solidly in at the moment, like Dyer and Adams. He seems to like Tommy Rogers quite a lot, even though he doesn't particularly play him very much. But those sort of guys, if you see Grady as a winger potentially as well, if he's going to use other guys in midfield, it's been pretty much the same wing back three combos for the last couple of windows. He doesn't seem particularly keen on altering a Dyer or an Adams at this stage necessarily.
Yeah, well, I think you compare that to where we were pre-Six Nations. You're thinking, well, you got Lewis Usama, you got Feiwa Bosa, in those 4. No, but you were thinking about it, and everyone was talking about it, and that was a really strong 4. And now you've got 2 established, one of which isn't on his peak form, of which his peak form is a starting British and Irish Lion, which is very high. And then I think behind that, you're looking at a group of wingers that, okay, you've got a Keelan Giles who has performed well this season regionally, but has historically hasn't been selected by Gatland. A Theo Kabanga, who, when we're talking about probably players who don't quite fit the Gatland mold, maybe fits into that as well, but has had a very good season despite having several injuries. I think Grady has to play in the centres because of the injuries and and you mentioned about the unavailability of certain players. So then you're looking at, I think, Hamer Webb. So you'd also look at like a Ryan Combia, who hasn't had perhaps his best season and has now been released by the Scarlets. Dragons have got a couple of players possible, but I don't think any of them are that close to international honours. So
Hathaway is the sort of bolter name that people keep talking about, although I don't particularly like him defensively
one particular one fullback keeps bringing up.
He's been playing on the wing a bit, but I don't particularly like him defensively from what I've seen so far.
But just to clarify, this is Hathaway plays for Gloucester, and he's played for England under-20s, hasn't he? And Wales under-20s.
I think it'll be more about capping him if he's involved than if he was playing in a Welsh side, there wouldn't be so much rush to cap him immediately. I don't think, if there was no threat of England there. But it's certainly not as deep as it was. It will be interesting to see what he does, because you say Grady has to play in centres, and I agree. But it also wouldn't massively surprise me if he tries to botch the 13 position with a Watkin or with even a Tompkins or something like that and switch him out and continues with Grady on the wing. I don't
thought he was going a different way with the 13, and I nearly just ended the call there.
It just wouldn't. Gatland rarely does the obvious. Is what it's. He's not sometimes for the positive, sometimes for the negative. He obviously has his style, but I could see a scenario where Grady spends summer on the wing in the Wales team, and Gatland doesn't quite like him at 13 yet, potentially.
Rather than going completely off topic, I do actually like the Hamer Webb international shout. It is just to clarify. I think his mum's from, I want to say from Cardiff, isn't, or from
I had
nearby.
Newport in my mind potentially,
Okay.
but somewhere around there.
The point is, he is Welsh qualified. Could be a good one. And I said the wing. So me and Hugh Catboy from the Scouts Feeder Pod, we're going to be doing a sort of stats based Wales squad in a couple of weeks once Judgment Day is completed, and we're going to try and the whole idea of it is going to be Six Nations. Our biggest problems were our scrum wasn't very good, and we lacked dominant carriers. So we're going to need to frame that to try and pick a squad of eligible and fit players to sort of fit through that. So I was struggling to find enough back three players.
I'd be interested to see if
I had both Rosser brothers in my list, so I'm glad I gave him a Webb's I'd be
interested to see if Morgan Morris makes that team of dominant carriers. I don't know what his stats are off the top of my head.
So I had to look. So just very quickly on the thing before I do actually end up overrun on the team the pod that should be talking about him. He is the best Welsh regional player for carries, attacking ruck rivals, dominant carries, and pulling defenders in. So he's of the Welsh back rowers, and so actually he is very good for that. Especially when you start dividing, putting it to per 80 minutes as well. So not just raw numbers.
Just to counter that, and I am a big fan of Morgan Morris and do feel he should be involved in the setup, but I would be interested to see what his figures are defensively and his figures are in a line-out capacity, which is probably the two areas where
line-out basically non-existent. Sometimes he's a player, he's a +1. Sometimes he's usually used that midfield carry. Defensively, he's all right. I'd say he's not the best of Wales back rows in there, but he's still quite up there. The only thing that says to me that Gatland doesn't like him is he thinks he's currently playing as good as he can, and he won't be able to step up that another gear, which is the only thing I can think of with some of these players. But similar with like the Nicky Smiths.
Maybe I think the shape of him doesn't quite appeal as well, but that's
also I think he doesn't fit
maybe being a bit
harsh. He also doesn't seem to fit in what Gatland wants in his 8. He wants that line out option. He wants a wide, someone who's good at wide, whereas Morgan Morris is very much more classically in tight carrier. Anyway, do we have any more award suggestions that we might want to put out? We did suggest privately Rant of the Year, which is basically 7 of Carwyn's rants, and my rants about David Jenkins at 6, I think, are the leading ones.
Hold on. You've had plenty of kicking rants as well. Ellis Bevan kicking. You've had a rant about Tina Spear.
You have the rant about Ellis Bevan's kick because it was the same weekend that Sean Lewis.
Yeah, but mine was a positive rant on behalf of Sean Lewis. Mine was a rant at people ranting at her, really, if I'm honest.
Yeah, but then you also had the same week you ranted about Ellis Bevan doing the same thing.
Yeah, fair point.
So Dan hasn't been around long enough to have a proper rant yet, but I'm sure they will come eventually. Any other awards people want to bring up?
No, I don't think so.
There was a most improved player, but I always feel that's a meh award, and I've never really liked it.
A friend of mine won that 2 years running at his cycling club, and I always found that quite funny. It's just something good about winning most improved 2 years running. The idea that you were so shit at begin that it's taken you 2 years to not be eligible for the award.
First year, he couldn't even get on the bike. He just stood next to it.
Still had stabilizers on.
There used to be awards at like proms and things like that. Who's come out of their shell most? There's always been the guy who's like not spoken to someone for a whole year and then suddenly got drunk at a party, basically.
See, I remember my sixth form ball runner. I got most intelligent male and most likely to succeed. I don't know what to succeed in. I presume, given my usual fuse, I succeed in mass murder or something, because some days in work. Thank God no one in work listens to this, because I think they'd all start looking at me very differently.
Awards. Oh, I did win Player of the Year, but that was rather ironically. So let's move on quickly from that.
Yeah. All right. Anything else either of you two want to bring up before we wrap up?
All good.
Not that I can think of. Nope.
In all that, then in that case, all that says is keep an eye out for the polls. They'll be coming out over the social medias feeds in due course. Thank you to Dan and Carwyn for joining me as ever.
Pleasure.
Cheers.
And thank you all for listening. Please do remember to like, subscribe, and share the podcast with your friends. Ta-ra!